All right, we are recording. I'm going to go ahead and put myself off camera so you all, Sue and Samir, can take it from here. Let's see. Yeah, we've got some folks starting to trickle in. All right, I'm going to make myself sparse. Welcome to the stage, Samir and Sue.
Thanks, Isabella.
Thank you. Awesome. I think we have people joining. I think folks are coming from the Anypoint Code Builder session. So welcome everybody. We'll get started. Hello everybody. Welcome to this session. I'm really excited to talk to you today about building, managing, and securing any API with MuleSoft API Management. Um, Actually, before I get started, wanted to express my gratitude and appreciation for for the MuleSoft community for all your help. In contributing to the community, networking with the community, sharing your knowledge, and from a product perspective, for us, like giving us the feedback. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. With that, let's get started. So could you go to the next slide?
Hello. Just a quick reminder, you have 45 minutes. If you need little longer, you can take because we have a break after this.
Okay.
Go through your session, enjoy your time, don't need to hurry, and best of luck,
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mariana. All
of
right.
course.
That's good. That's good that we have more time, so we can definitely talk a bit more about this topic and also show you some new demos that we have. So again, welcome everybody to today's session about this topic about managing and building and securing APIs, which is an important topic, especially as as you're adopting API-led architecture, developing APIs on Mule platform, but not only on Mule platform, but also APIs across your organization. Quick intro about me, Samir Parulkar, product marketing, focusing on MuleSoft API management technologies. And I'm joined today by Sue. Sue, could you give a quick intro about yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm a technical product marketer, and I also focus on API management as well as MuleSoft platform services. So,
Awesome, thank you. I love those comments, Jim. Absolutely love those comments. All right, get to the next slide. Okay. All right. So what we're going to cover today is four things. First, I'm going to cover why universal API management. That's our vision of MuleSoft for managing APIs, like controlling APIs. But why is that really even important today? So I'll cover that. Then we'll go into governing API. Like, what do we mean by that? What are some of the products and what's coming up from a roadmap perspective? I'll cover the first two parts and I hand over to Sue. And Sue is going to then talk about managing those APIs. Like, what are the why do we need it? What are the couple of products that we have, and what's the roadmap? And towards the end, we'll talk about engaging with those APIs, getting the most value from your API, and what are the products we have in the portfolio, and again the roadmap. So idea is like setting the stage, talking about the portfolio, talking about the really super high level roadmap, and then we do have a quick demo about our latest capability that we just launched, like a 3 4 days back. All right, so let's get started. Okay, next slide. All right, so again, APIs. I mean, you all have used APIs for many years. I don't have to tell you the value of APIs. I mean, you all know about it. I mean, I see the from all the comments over there. But I mean, APIs are getting actually increasingly more important today, right? When you look at any of the digital experience that you see today, a lot of the digital experience that you see, new experience that you see, are built on APIs. And APIs, what essentially started earlier as a way by which you can easily connect to your different systems have evolved much and more after that, right? When you think about things like creating like omni-channel experience, creating a digital experience, right? Providing those type of services, APIs really help and enable them. And oftentimes you don't even know about them, right? So for example, if you look at a banking application, what we probably actually, when you go back, when you look at a banking application that you see here on the screen, a lot of it that as a customer, we are used to doing this, right? So for example, like, I'm using my banking application to transfer money between my accounts or to pay somebody. But a lot of it is actually delivered by APIs behind the scenes, right? So APIs in turn, what happens, the advantage of them is they're kind of like the building blocks for you to then compose those applications. The advantage of those building blocks is that just like Lego pieces, you can actually change and update them as your requirements change, right? And that's the advantage. Instead of it being like when we talk about monolithic application, once you design something, once you adopt something, then to change it, if it's going to take a lot of time, that it in turn doesn't help you from moving much more faster. So APIs are kind of like the building blocks that help you create those composed applications. Uh, Next slide. But at the same time, what is also happening is, right, as you're adopting more APIs, your APIs for different use cases or business use cases that you have. So for example, if you're building connected applications, you're either modernizing your applications, or you're trying to go to the cloud, or you're trying to create new revenue streams. What is happening is the adoption of APIs is growing at a rate that is far outpacing the ability to manage them. Recent update from Gartner, this was actually 2 years back, was greater than 50% of the APIs are going to be unmanaged by 2025. So the question then is like, are you getting the most value from your API investment? And that's always the kind of like, you are adopting APIs, but like, you have all these different initiatives, but are you really getting the most value from all your API investments? Next slide. And we hear this quite a lot, right? You have APIs for your, say, for example, your B2B EDI, API ecosystem. That's what we've kind of like known about late for the last like couple of years. Microservices architecture, cloud native architecture, event driven architecture lately, and now also what we're seeing is as you're adopting new AI applications, right? A lot of times the interface with AI is also through an API. We've seen some use cases emerging that are coming up where you're using your same similar platform, but now as you're adopting AI applications like say open source AI, oftentimes that interface to that open source AI is also an API. So in turn, what is also happening is that we are seeing that this is a term that we're seeing quite often is like API sprawl or API proliferation. And the reason for this is like, your APIs are in different architectures, different solutions. And in turn, the challenge then you have is you have a limited visibility and access to those existing APIs. You have inconsistent enforcement of security and governance on those APIs, and slow time to market because now your best practice could not be defined across your API landscape, and complex operations and troubleshooting, right? So the challenge then is like you need a new approach to effectively use, manage, and engage with those APIs. Next slide. And that's where our vision, MuleSoft's vision of universal API management comes in, right? This is a vision that we set 2 years back. And the idea behind this was to now expand the scope of API management to any API that you have, right? Not necessarily only the Mule API, but any API that you have. And at a very high level, what it allows you to do is allows you to now build your APIs using different tool sets that we offer, but also discover and catalog any of the non-Mule APIs into one place so that you have single source of truth for all your APIs. Then ensure consistent API quality and security, governance, control and secure access to those APIs, management, and engaging and creating those API ecosystems engage. So essentially, if you look at the overall API lifecycle, all the way from build, discover, govern, manage, engage, think about this life cycle now or try and apply that to any API that you have. That's our vision with Universal API Management. And we launched this vision around 2 years back, and then we launched products that actually help you get there. Next slide. So let me talk first about governing any API. That's more around like how you can apply best practices to any API. Next slide. So when you talk about governance, right, and you probably will relate with what I'm saying is that governance, or specifically API governance, is always an interesting topic, right? Because oftentimes, a lot of times teams agree that we want this, but there's always disagreements in like how do you actually go about doing it. So and governance is mostly about like applying what are some of the best practices, what are some of the guardrails that you could use applying across your API landscape, all the way from design to deployment. And oftentimes the challenge is, I would say, like twofold, right? One is the process to actually go about doing it, but at the same time, it's also the tools and the technology to help you get there. So I wouldn't say that technology is always going to solve all the problem, but it's also you need the tool sets and then the processes to help you get there, right? This is where we launched a product to around 1.5 years back about Anypoint API governance, which now provided you now the tools and technology to start actually implementing governance within your organization. How it actually allows your developers as well as your security teams to work together to maintain that compliance and speed. An example of that is if I'm part of a security team of an architect, I can define the rules, I can define the best practices that my teams should follow, right? Like these are some, and those best practices could be okay, these are how you want to define those APIs, or every API should have HTTP access. Simple things like that, right? And once you do that, right, again, then your developers, as they're developing their APIs, can make sure that they conform to those best practices, right? And you are not limited to those best practices that MuleSoft provides, but also your industry best practice. So you can define your own. And then allowing the developers as well as the security teams to work together. So as a developer, when you're doing it, when you're designing your API, you can now adhere to those, providing you the tool sets to do that. That's what Anypoint API governance provides you. Again, self-service access to the rules from Exchange, applying the standards, any API definition, and at the same time providing you like a conformance dashboard, which allows you to then see which APIs actually conform and which APIs don't. Once you know that which APIs don't, you can then notify the developer and tell them that, okay, these are the issues. And at the same time, the notification that goes to the developer, you actually get guided tools to then fix the problem. So again, trying using the tools and technology to make it easier for you to control the API sprawl. Yes, Tony, absolutely. Taming those unruly APIs, right? Defining them. But again, this is not limited to only the Mule API. This also applies to the non-Mule APIs, because you want to catalog those into Exchange, and then you can start applying this governance to it. Next slide. So now when you look at the overall governance, right, what we did was the idea was governing those APIs across the API lifecycle. We started with specification. So we started with design specification when we launched the product. And across the last 1.5 years, we have been investing in the product area to allow you now to not only govern the specification, but also an instance and also catalog. This is what we call the end-to-end API governance, right? So all the way from not only defining the design specs, but also now as the API is a catalog, you can then figure out, okay, what are the APIs, what are they conforming to your rules, and then also look at instance. For example, you can say that, hey, this is my best practice that the API should be adhering to this set of policies. But then what the challenge also then is, okay, but I have like almost like 100 APIs which are already have instance in API manager. How do I know whether those actually conform? So we provided now capability so that you can now your instance also can be governed, and you can now get notifications for that. What is coming up pretty soon is documentation, governance for documentation, and then also governance for API products, right, with SLA tiers and subscriptions. So stay tuned for that. So again, the idea here is providing end-to-end governance for across your API lifecycle. Next slide. And now this is like a quick snapshot of the different things that we provide within the product. So all the way from a design, catalog, secure, and manage. And we provide the MuleSoft, we provide the best practices. So essentially, a new one that we just launched. So when we launched the product, it came with a default best Anypoint best practices, Open API best practices, OWASP top 10 best practices. And the idea behind this is these are the rule sets that come up out of box rule sets that you can start implementing easily, right? These are like the rule sets or a group of or a set of rules that you can just now start applying directly to your API profiles, right? Recently what we launched was from going more into the instance governance was the catalog best practices and the API management best practices, right? We launched that. At the same time, we know that customers' use cases are different. So sometimes we also provide a way by which you can actually now define your own rule sets and then modify those existing rule sets. Next slide. And what's coming down the pike is essentially now we're taking it to that next level again, documentation best practices that's coming in the first class for first half of FY25, as well as extension of APIM best practices like governing the SLA tiers, contracts, and alerts. As we go more into the second half of FY25, we will be now also investing in increasing the universal visibility on your APIs, again, providing you the actionable insights as well as API catalog service for Salesforce APIs. And the rule set development, again, providing you a CLI interface to do that. So again, stay tuned for this. This is more around the high level about from a governance perspective, what value API governance provide, as well as the products and capabilities to help you support that. Next slide. So I'm going to hand over to now Sue to walk you through now how you can manage your API and then a demo about those capabilities. Sue, to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amir. So yeah, I'll be talking about how you can manage any API with Anypoint platform. So first, you can so we provide Anypoint API Manager. It's one of the features or product that we've had in Anypoint platform for a long time. And I know it's really well loved and used by a lot of you. And essentially, API Manager provides a user interface where you can go ahead and manage and control your APIs by easily applying security policies or be able to create custom policies, upload them, and then you can also apply them to your APIs. You can set up contracts, SLAs, as well as API groups so that you can really have full control over any API that you want to bring in onto Anypoint platform, or even if it's outside of it, you can now go ahead and manage it on API Manager. And on top of that, we do also provide APIs, like platform APIs, where you can go ahead and incorporate applying policies and controlling them through your CI/CD pipeline also. And part of managing your APIs, we also provide gateways from, so you might have heard of Anypoint Flex Gateway, which we launched last year, as well as Mule Gateway. And both do basically the same thing, just on different sides of the coin. So Anypoint Flex Gateway, it's really ideal if you're looking to protect APIs that are built outside of Anypoint platform, or if you want really full control over where your gateway is placed, as well as what type of environment it's installed on. So you can install it on Linux, Docker, containers, or Podman, and Red Hat OpenShift, as well as set it on Kubernetes or install them on Kubernetes. So you really get that flexibility to decide what architecture works for you. And depending on your needs or depending on your performance needs, you can get the gateway as close to the application as possible. And Mule Gateway, on the other hand, you can kind of think of it as our managed gateway service where you don't have to worry about the installation or updating the gateway. It's all done on Cloud Hub. So then in CloudUp 2.0, so all of your gateway is managed by MuleSoft. And it's really easy to set up, and you can even set up proxies for your CloudUp applications or runtime fabric applications if you want that extra layer where you're masking the actual application URL. So, so yeah. And as Samir kind of alluded to earlier, we recently launched a policy development kit for Anypoint Flex Gateway, and um, and mainly it's to simplify the custom policy building process for developers. So policy development kit is an SDK that really simplifies the process for you. So it helps you to create a template of the project, and basically all the file structures are built out. So then it's just a couple of the files that you need to customize depending on what you want your policy to do. And it supports popular IDE. So like if you're really familiar with Visual Studio Code or IntelliJ or even others, now you're able to develop these policies on these machines or on these IDEs. And then the coding language that it uses is Rust. So it's pretty simple, and doesn't have as much ramp time to learn how to learn those coding languages if you already know how to develop in other coding languages like Python. And it also provides testing within the project, so then you can go ahead and debug the code and make sure that it works. It provides a playground where you can spin up a Docker container with Flex Gateway in local mode so that you can test out the policy even before you get it uploaded onto Anypoint Exchange. And then lastly, if you look at the documentation for Policy Development Kit, it's pretty comprehensive, and it also provides code samples so that you can speed up the policy creation. And I know personally for me, when I'm learning a new language, new coding language, or trying to learn a new SDK, it really helps to have examples where I can kind of learn from and kind of build on top of that. So yeah, so now I'll be giving you a quick demo of how Policy Development Kit works, what are some steps that you need to do to get it started, as well as applying that custom policy in the API Manager and Flex Gateway, and see how and try building out the goal of trying to build a custom policy all the way to applying it. So okay, so this is Anypoint platform. I'm sure all of you have seen it before. And from here, we can go into API Manager. Oh, let's log in again. All right, so I have a couple APIs. And then, so now if I go into policies, API Manager and Flex Gateway comes with a lot of included policy as is. So such as quality of service, for rate limiting or health check, security, transformation, which uses data weave. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Policy Development Kit also supports data weave, so you can do lots of cool transformations that you would like to do on top of these included policies. You can also troubleshoot in compliance. But you can also see that I have two custom policies, and one of them is data caching, and this is the one that we'll be looking at. So how did data caching custom policy get here? And that is through Policy Development Kit. So for me to get to the point where I have a policy built out, like with all this folder, it requires you to set up a project. And Policy Development Kit is a plugin on top of Anypoint CLI. So then here I've can put in a command to create a policy project and then set up and then put in the name, and then it'll go ahead and run it. And I'm logged into my Anypoint platform through the Anypoint CLI with a connected application that I built specifically for PPK. Now that it's created, I can go ahead and let me go ahead and run make setup, and this will make sure, policy. So this will running make setup will make sure that all my dependencies are installed. So while that's running, we can go to Visual Studio Code, and let me go open that folder. So as you can see in the project, in the project, you can see that a bunch of files have been created, and this is what's going to make your building a custom policy a lot simpler. Because otherwise, without this, you would be setting all of this up yourself, and that's a lot of actually hours of time that you would have to spend doing all of this. So let me give you a quick tour of the file structure and kind of zoom in here. So first is the gcl.yaml, and this is where your metadata resides. This is where you can specify what user inputs that you would like in your policy. And then after that, you can go into lib.rs. And this is the Rust file where you're going to define how the policy is going to work. Like, what are the rules behind it? What are the data weave functions that you want done? And what kind of information you'll get in from input, as well as what do you want to send out as an output. So once all of that is done, you can go ahead and also set up tests. So there's two different types of tests that you can do in Policy Development Kit. One is a playground where you basically launch the custom policy, and you can also define API specifications to go ahead and define what policy you want to do and what are some configurations that you already want to set up. So you want to input your test parameters here, and then you can go ahead and launch a Docker and then make calls to it to see if that policy works. Another one is an integrated test, and you can kind of think of it as automated QA. So then it's basically you're putting in what requests you're going to submit to that API once it's running, and it just automatically runs through it, and then it tells you if it failed or passed. So that's kind of the layout of this project. And then the cargo, it has information on versioning as well as the name. So this information is what's going to get uploaded to your Exchange, or this first part. So now that I went over that, I wanted to show you just quickly some of the example code that we have for Policy Development Kit that gets provided out of the box with the documentation. So it comes with 6 different simple sample code that you can take a look at, and data caching policy is an example. And all of these come with built out tests, playground tests, as well as integration tests, and just suggestions on how you can go ahead and run it. And then for each of these, it actually comes with like a use case so that you can kind of understand like the thought behind why they built out this policy and what are the things that this code is trying to do. So all of this is available on the documentation and on GitHub. So you can go ahead and, clone this repository and just play around with it. It's super helpful. And then lastly, so let me go back to, I lost my Visual Studio Code. There we go. All right, so we're back. So let's say you're done building out your policy. How do you upload to Exchange? So first you need to run make build. And basically what this does is it compiles all the code for you. And in the past, this one simple command, like without policy development kit, would probably take you a long time because this the policy development kit is built on WASM, and it requires a lot of complex compiling if you want to use PDK. So while that's running, it will go ahead and basically compile all the dependencies that you need into a nice compact size that we can upload to Exchange. And in Exchange, you can actually upload it in two different ways. First is make publish. So make publish is you saying that, okay, this is ready to be checked by someone else. So it's not yet released, but it's still in development mode. So we don't want to go ahead and just tell people that it's ready to be used on any APIs. So you can go ahead and make publish, and that will go ahead and publish it as, so it will take the name of the policy that you gave it, and then it also put DEV at the end. So while that's running, I've already gone ahead and released or did the final version in Anypoint Exchange. So we'll go there. And that's why you can see it in data caching. But to show you what it looks like in Exchange, so it will show up as a policy, and when you click on it, you can go ahead and see the versions. And all you have to do, if you're making minor changes, you just need to specify in that cargo.toml file, and it will go ahead and upload a new version, but you'll still have access to the old version until you decide to deprecate it or delete it. And then after that, you can also see that it's been implemented. So you can go ahead and implement it, add implementation here and see what APIs are using this policy. And back in API Manager now, let's go ahead and apply this policy. And so these are the default values that were specified in my GCL .yaml file, but you can go ahead and change it. So like I can change it to a different number. And if you're doing, data weave transformations and whatnot, like it would just take these values that you inputted, and then it would do the transformation within the policy too. So, sorry, I forgot to update my Flex Gateway. So we will pretend that it worked. And so once that's done, your policies get applied and you're good to go. So that is the demo for policy development kit. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. And yeah. Okay, so what's coming up ahead for API Manager and Flex Gateway? It's so in the first half for API Manager, we're going to support deployment of APIs with the latest Mule 4.6 LTS that launched this past week, as well as support manual approval for API request. And then for Flex Gateway, we're in a couple of months, we're going to be launching Flex Gateway on IBM Power. So if you're a customer that uses IBM Power, now you can protect those APIs on there with Flex Gateway. And then we'll also be creating additional included policies such as support for AWS Lambda as well as RPC transcoding. And then later on, you'll be hearing from Aston on some of the innovations in monitoring at the next session after the break. But we'll also be including that in Flex Gateway in the future also. And then since PDK just came out, we're looking to just continue to enhance it and improve it. And we would love to hear your feedback. And so if you have any, please let the community managers know or let us know on ideas.salesforce.com. And then looking a little bit further ahead, we got a couple more innovations coming out for API Manager, where you can now, you'll be able to do client applications that are scoped just for certain business groups or environments, be able to request and approve APIs for API groups, and then customize and configure API request notification. And then lastly, we wanted to provide a migration guide where we can support you through, kind of give you kind of an overview of how you can migrate from Mule 3 to Mule 4. And then lastly, we've heard that you want Flex Gateway to also have a fully managed API gateway on top of the Mule gateway. So we're going to be betaing that later this year. And then last, I wanted to talk about engaging any API. So how can you take all these APIs that you've secured, you've governed, and how can you make sure that they get used by, let's say, certain groups of people or by external users? Well, you can do that with Anypoint API Experience Hub. It creates, API portals with guided UI, as well as you're able to brand it to your organization's branding using Salesforce Experience Cloud. And then you can manage who has access to these and who gets to request APIs, and then provide kind of a self-service way for developers and API consumers to go ahead, look up APIs, check APIs, and make it that API marketplace to drive API adoption. API Exchange is built mainly for your internal users, but Experience Hub, you can think of it as for both internal and external, but maybe it's more targeted to a certain group of people so that you have that curated list of APIs that you can really make visible to what they need and what they're trying to do. So what's coming up for Experience Hub? We're going to support using sandboxes in Salesforce so that you can test the portals before fully publishing them out into the public. We want to, and then customize API catalogs with filters, and granular selection of API instances. So we've heard from many of you that public and private wasn't granular enough. You wanted something in between that spectrum. So we'll also be supporting that. And then in the future, looking ahead, we want to support, we'll be supporting profile-based visibility, as well as publishing API groups and using CI/CD to automate portal management, and then also improve scalability, and then allow the API product managers to see the reuse metrics. So that's kind of what's coming up for API management products that we have for MuleSoft. So if you want to learn more about API management, we recently released a demo series that walks you through every single part of the life cycle of an API, all the way from build to getting it published out onto Experience Hub. So if you want to get a full deeper dive into the entire product portfolio, I highly recommend checking out the demo series. And if you want to just learn more about our vision for universal API management and how you can manage and control any API, check out the CIO guide. And then Samir and I will be at TDX in coming March. So we would love to see you in person and come say hi. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and Samir all.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. I think if you have any questions, I think we still have some few minutes left. Do let us know. I think I answered some of the questions. I think the main question was about Flex Gateway, when we'll have it managed. That's probably what the team is already working on. Should have a beta version by the second half of this year. Any other question, please do let us know. And again, just want to re-emphasize again, there's always this confusion between UAPIM as a product. So Universal API Management is our vision for API management. And then we deliver that vision by different products. So essentially, Flex Gateway to control non-Mule APIs, cataloging to then catalog non-Mule APIs into Exchange, governance to now govern both Mule as well as non-Mule APIs, API Manager as a centralized control plane to manage all the APIs, and API Experience Hub to then tap onto the APIs in Exchange, whether they are Mule or non-Mule APIs, to build a personalized portal. So essentially, helping you throughout the API lifecycle.
Okay, I don't see any questions in the Q&A tab, but maybe we'll just stick around for 30, 45 more seconds, just in case somebody's typing away. Thank you so much, Samir and Sue. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And also thank you to our community who is present here live today. And I know the folks watching the recording as well. We're so grateful for your time and energy, and of course, your partnership in helping to bring these products to life and helping to evangelize on our behalf. So just thank you to both sides of the equation. Cool. And if folks don't have questions, you can head over. We're having just a brief intermission in a networking session. It's low key. You can